Hey everybody, this is Rocky and Sarah, the Tea and Tequila Book Babes, coming to you for this episode where we're going to talk about writing and using it as an expression of power and influence. So we are just off of the US elections and we know who our president-elect is. And there's been a surge of joy and then anxiety and in mourning on both sides of this of this experience. So there's people that are going through every range of emotion right now. And what Sarah and I talked about afterwards is that this is an incredible opportunity and time to really use our writing as a way of influence and as a way of expressing our power, because writing is stories. It's all about what those stories mean and what they mean to us, and that has the capacity to really shift or instigate thought and change. So we wanted to riff off of this idea because it's really important, and it also shows us when we're writing a book, we're not just writing a book, we're writing something that's a piece of our legacy, that even if you're writing fiction, that there is realness and power in that. So I'm going to kick it back to Sarah, but we're going to just go back and forth about this idea.
Yes, so it's very important. I think now, I will admit, yesterday I was really sad. Not going to go into politics, but I felt despair. And I was like, you know what? I'm currently editing a book. It's about cyberbullying. Like, part of it's cyberbullying, like how negative it can be and like its influences. And for me, it's important. This book is saying, how does cyberbullying affect people? It's a current problem with society. How do we address it? As startup owners, what responsibility do you have? So anyways, it's this whole thing. Hopefully it'll be published soon and you all can read it. But I sat there and I'm like, well, I feel kind of powerless right now, but I still have power with my books, with my words. And I'm currently about to, well, I sent it out yesterday to my editor and I was like, but it could have been done 2 weeks from now. I was like, no, I need to do this now to feel empowered. So I spent the day writing my query letter, writing the synopsis, editing like the last book and formatting it and just sent it off. And I felt really empowering because it's like, no, I can't control a lot with the world. I can't control maybe some incidences of hate that are being said on the internet. People are going to say what they're going to say, but I can use my voice to say, no, I don't tolerate this. I believe in love, and I can do this through my writing, which I think in times where you feel powerless, writing is more important than ever, because they say the pen is mightier than the sword. So instead of feeling sad and hopeless, I took the time to take action with my writing, get it to my editor, and I felt better knowing I can't change results of elections. I can't change other people's viewpoints, all of them. But maybe I can make other people feel empowered through my writing and maybe change a few people's minds or at least make them rethink things through my words. And I think that with social media, it's so easy to get your thoughts lost in the Twitter feed or Facebook, or your organic reach is less because now there's ads paid and all this. But with books, the power I think behind them is it's on a shelf. I mean, people could not go to the bookstore or the library, but they'll get advertised multiple times through social media, which will draw attention. But beyond that, even like bookstores, people walk in, they'll see it, and they won't be able to ignore it as well. If you sit down with a book, you can be more nuanced than 140 characters, and it makes people sit up and listen more than like a random Facebook post. And if it's on your nightstand, you're not going to ignore it as much. Well, some people do, but not me.
But the thing is, it's a physical thing. It's present. It's there. It's whole and complete, right? So that's the thing, is that when we share our stories, there's always core values and issues and ideas of morality that come up in our stories, no matter what kind of story you are writing. And so, you could write an epic fantasy, you can write a contemporary, you can write a romance, you can write a thriller, anything in there. There's always going to be these big questions. And you want to see how your characters and these multifaceted, full and nuanced creatures are going to interact with these big questions. And when you do that, you're giving your reader the opportunity to do the same, and they're seeing it through these different points of view. And that allows them to internalize different feelings or different thoughts or different ideas that maybe they didn't have before. And I think that's such a powerful thing because as individuals, we are locked within a specific experience. No matter how engaged and active we are in the world, as you know, say you travel the world or you do lots of service work or you do lots of cultural immersion, anything that you do, we still are locked within a specific experience. And so as authors, we allow people to experience something new through our words. And when they experience something new, it has the capacity to shift somebody's thought process around specific issues. That is actually a core piece of the work that I want to do with my future books and with fellowship I'm applying to, is that I want to be able to take really complex social issues and bring it to individual stories and show what that can mean on a human experience level versus this big umbrella, because that's what makes it real. So as authors, we have the opportunity to make things real for our readers. They get lost in a world. That's why books are so powerful, because they aren't 140 characters, because they're not, a 500 word blog post or a page on Facebook. These are literally hundreds of pages where you're diving into a story and into a world, and the reader gets to escape into it, but then they get immersed into it and they can see how it evolves and how the story changes and how the characters transform. And that's powerful. And so I really want to underscore the fact that as an author, you're not just a creative, which is a wonderful thing. You're not just a storyteller, which is a wonderful thing. You are a change maker, even if it's unintentional, because here you are gifting a piece of yourself to another person, and they are taking it in and they are experiencing it. And whenever we experience something, there is some subtle, if not big and glorious change that occurs. And so right now, we are entering a time where we are uncertain and we have our emotions to process on the world stage, and we're looking out and we want to be the change makers intentionally through our writing. And one of our writing sisters said the same thing yesterday. She's like, I feel enraged, and all I can do to let this rage release is to write. So when we write, we are empowered, we are expressing our emotions, we are releasing our emotions. And when we are fully expressed, we are that much more powerful. And so writing has this gorgeous way that it can transform and empower us in the writing of it, and then that legacy of transformation and empowerment is then handed off to the reader, and it just keeps on going. And so I think this is an incredible time for writers, for artists, for creatives, to really stand in their power and recognize their influence and own it. So that way, every time they sit down with a page, they know that it matters far more than they even realize.
What I also think is interesting about writing is by putting your ideas in a different world. I think this is actually even more true of fantasy, but it can be with contemporary. Like, you write out some ideas in a fantasy world, like Lord of the Rings, I think is super powerful because of this. You can accept ideas more easily that you might be resistant to because it's set in a strange or almost alien setting. So it's something that's other, and you might be more receptive to ideas or perspectives you hadn't considered because there's that degree of removal. I think it can happen with contemporaries. It can happen with historical fiction. It can happen anywhere, but I think in particular, speculative fiction has this special power where if it's your ideas, you can put some big ideas that people might normally be very resistant to, and they might be more receptive because it is, in a way, that doesn't feel as immediate to them. And it's interesting how fiction can put a new perspective on things. Like by reading a story and there's the emotional resonance and it's very personal to you, you'll be much more likely to change or take action than if you read a news article with tons of statistics or facts. Like emotions, which we have learned from this election, are super powerful. That's what people react to, is emotional appeal. And I think the strength of fiction and art is it's really good at that.
That's so true. So true. And that's the piece of it, is that with fiction, and through our characters, we want the reader to sob or laugh out loud or get uncomfortable or get afraid. We want them to experience all of those things because we want it to feel real, because in life we feel all of those things. And it's so true that something expressed in fiction and something expressed in fantasy or something otherworldly in some capacity allows someone who might be really hesitant or resistant to be able to be receptive to an idea, and then they'll have that aha moment when they realize, like, wow, this is a reflection of the world I'm in, without the fairies or without the dragons or without the spell books, but this is the world I'm in, and am I okay with that? So absolutely, absolutely. There's so much in the ink that we spill, and the worlds we build, and the pages upon pages that we want to throttle sometimes. It all comes together. It all comes together. And if you're a reader watching this, be mindful about what you're reading. See how it does impact or influence you. See how it does make you feel. See how it does shift or change or instigate an idea in you that reflects what's going on in the world around you. And then realize, in a book, in a story, who do you want to be in your own life? Do you want to be the person that sits by and observes? The person that does nothing? Or do you want to be the heroine of that story, or the hero of that story? Because in reality, who we are, this life, we all have a story to tell. Our lives are our stories.
Sure.
And we can decide, just like a character in a book, how that will play out. And we might be facing tremendous obstacles and conflict and pain and suffering, and maybe you're not. But it doesn't change the fact that you constantly stand in a place of choice, and that's powerful. So when you wake up every day, when you make decisions, when you decide to not comment on that thread that would bully somebody or make fun of somebody, all of these decisions are simple decisions, but they add up to who you become as a person.
It's always the small things. It's just a collection of really small things. And that's why I think it's good about fiction, is you can see the consequences of super small things through the writing. And it's also a safe way to explore these different ideas. So if you see characters, like in Crime and Punishment, commit murder, you can see the consequences of it without actually having committed the action. And you could be like, warning sign, definitely not planning on killing the old women in my building. Or on the flip side, you can see this person was scared, but they did the heroic thing. And it might have been hard in trials in the interim, but eventually they triumphed and it was worth it. Or even if it didn't work out, at least the person felt good about themselves. And you realize you might not get the consequences you want, but you do get peace of mind. So I just think fiction is awesome because it's a safe place to explore the ideas, and you gain wisdom from seeing the consequences of characters.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Any last thoughts, Sarah, before we sign off?
I'm just going to say there's going to be a lot of punk rock in the next 4 years. I'm just going to say this right now. Everyone watch for the rise of punk rock. I've called it to my husband. I'm like, Bush administration, a lot of punk rock. Now it's going to have a lot of punk rock. It's like Republicans come into office, regardless of your political views. It's true. Republican goes into office, a lot of punk rock.
Sarah
like Reagan, punk rock.
I think we should put a poll on that and start taking bets, because That makes sense. I can see that.
I said it here first, people. Remember this month.
Exactly. Sarah was the one to tell you.
I love punk rock, so I'm super psyched.
Me too. So awesome. Great music to come, y'all. So I am so grateful that you tuned in. Get ready for punk rock, but also get ready for you experiencing the world through books in new, complex, and profound ways. And as a writer, really be intentional and mindful about the fact that with your pen, you have power. So claim that power and get ready to change the world one page at a time.